Public comment. D. Jones.
How you doing, everybody? I'm D. Jones, passionate visionary and entrepreneur. It's the last human resource committee. It's crazy. I just had to come speak to you guys because I got some funny things to say, and it's just funny. So I am independently contracted with an organization called C4, and I'm a visionary leader. I'm pretty good at leadership. I think I'm one of the best leaders around Kent County, to be honest. I think I'm a very bold and brave person that's been able to stand up for the community when they really needed me to. And as I was one of the people who submitted my project to the ARPA and everything else, I do have this community center thing that I do, but I know I didn't have the financial resources to properly get everything that I needed to truly be able to do that. And I didn't want to submit that, and as I said, but funny thing, so I end up asking you guys for $250,000 to do an esports competition. And then a year later, I end up being asked to be a part of this organization, C4. And then I end up being a part of a coalition of people within C4 who actually help get $200,000 from an organization called Green Line in the Block to create the first electric vehicle BIPOC ride share. And I'm the co-chair of the steering committee of this, and we've already connected with a Black-owned electric vehicle company. This car charges in 300 seconds. I'll let you guys just think of how quick that is. And so I'm the person that's leading this project, and I'm telling you now, already working on a feasible project. I'm pretty good at business development. I just didn't have the resources to do my ideal project, but I'm going to show Kent County Board and everybody across the state and the United States what a feasible project is. We're already going to be doing a presentation where I'll be developing a workshop where I'll be showing people in the South Detroit how they can actually franchise what we're doing here in the city of GR. So we're talking about leading the state and being able to be innovative and connecting them to resources that are already there, and this electric vehicle car company is already located in Detroit. So I'm really excited about what I'm doing here because, I mean, it's powerful. These cars are fast. We're talking about having a green future and being able to create green infrastructure. And I'm also developing this esports league. I got the official bank of the Detroit Pistons, and they have a financial education where they actually educate 7,000 students across 40 schools. And I'm just really excited to be able to do all of this cool work across Kent County. So I just wanted to say, like, I'm doing some cool work, and I'll be doing an esports competition at the DeVos Place 2024, and we're actually working with the Sports Commission to bring a seven-figure esports competition here next year. Hopefully it goes good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, D. Jones. Anyone else that would like to address us? Seeing no one, we will move to approval of last meeting's minutes. Do I have a motion to approve last meeting's minutes? Motion by Pakla, support by LeGrand. Any comments, questions? If not, all those in favor, please say yes. 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 All those opposed, say no. Last meeting's minutes have been approved. Next item on our agenda, Dar Bass from the Department of Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit of what the Department of Public Works has been doing this last year. We've got a brief presentation. I have one of my cohorts here, Steve Faber, who's our communications manager, and I think Kim Williams will be here shortly. She's our finance director. It's been a really busy year, actually, for DPW, probably one of the busiest. Kim's here. Sorry, I missed her. I saw the administrator laughing, so I knew there was something going on. It's been a really busy year for us. I would say probably in memory in terms of the number of facilities and projects that we've been working on throughout our fleet of facilities. Wanted to give you a little bit of background. Of course, we have our waste energy facility, our recycling center, South Kent landfill, the North Kent transfer station. We have 2 recycling drop-off centers. We also have 3 facilities that we monitor long-term facilities, landfill facilities that are closed, and those are in Kentwood, Sparta, and then we have the North Kent landfill. We have our SafeChem service centers, which are growing exponentially. We have 5 facilities that allow residents to bring in electronics or household hazardous waste, anything from oil to paint to car cleaners to pesticides. We have a swap shop now, which is really neat. We have that at our Wealthy facility at the admin office, where residents can come in and they're able to, at no cost, take all these materials that have come into us. We've checked them and we put them back on the shelf for these residents to use, and it's fun to see people driving in and walking in to take advantage of that. So our fleet of facilities is actually kind of along the 131 corridor. You'll see in the northern Kent County, we're located in Plainfield Township, we're located here in the city, and of course in Byron Township. We're a $51.752 million enterprise fund. The majority of our revenue comes from our tipping fees, but we also generate revenue from commodities, from the energy that we produce, both at our landfill gas to energy plant and our waste energy facility. The solid waste surcharge, we've also been very successful in the last couple of years attracting state grants to help offset the cost of some of our capital improvements. We kind of consist of administration, which includes finance and communications. We have our solid waste operations. We have our recycling operations, waste energy, environmental compliance, and then, of course, as I mentioned, our landfill remediation group. So our goals, we continue to look forward to the future and see a time and a vision where Kent County can reduce what it sends to landfill by 90% by our hope is by the year 2030. In doing that, we see the value of and the necessity to enter into public-private collaborative partnerships, or P3. We believe that's the only way that we can move the needle and move ourselves into a materials management, sustainable materials management future. And then, of course, around compliance, we have struggled with PFAS as well as many industries. And of course, we receive basically everything on the back end that either was manufactured with or contains PFAS, so it impacts our operations around disposal. Some significant accomplishments. We're about 3/4 through the construction of our new North Kent transfer station. That facility will probably triple in size what we have today. As you know, the northern Kent County corridor continues to grow, and there's significant pressure on the facilities that we have there. So we will be improving efficiency there by adding a second scale. We're going to be putting in a kiosk that allows the packer trucks, the commercial haulers running packer trucks, that would be the type of truck that runs down the road picking up your trash at the curb, to be able to key in and key out remotely to improve their experience and move them more quickly through. We're also going to be improving our recycling drop-off there by repurposing the existing transfer station just for recycling, so residents will be able to move more quickly, safely, and hopefully be able to expand what we take there. Another significant accomplishment is we constructed the last cell at South Kent Landfill. It's known as Cell 56. It's 56 because 56 have been built since the mid-1980s, and this is the last one. What you see there in the photo is the lining process. It's a highly engineered facility, and that's the lining process that's occurring as we prepare that cell to be used. It will be ready to move forward and be used by early next year. We also are adding a third generation unit at our landfill gas to energy program out there. We have 2 combustion engines today, generates about 3 megawatts, which is about 3,000 home equivalent. And so we'll be adding that third combustion unit. Because of the amount of gas that we're generating out there, we can actually add that third combustion unit and move that from a flare over to energy production, so we're adding value in that way. Some other things, waste energy, we moved through and transitioned to a new operator this year. Vicinity Energy, that also owns and operates the downtown heating and cooling district, is our new operator. They took over 1st of February. It was a heavy lift. It involved nearly a year and a half of preparation, and we brought them alongside about a year ahead of Covanta Energy exiting our facility. That was successfully completed, and we're really excited and pleased with Vicinity. We also entered into contract and will be, for the first time, probably by next quarter, being able to remove the non-ferrous metal fraction out of the ash. We've always been able to recycle the scrap steel because we've been able to capture it with a magnet. Technology has moved forward where we can use eddy current technology, which allows us to energize non-ferrous, so it'd be the copper, the zinc, the brass, the stainless steel, all those things, and actually extract that out of the ash as well and move that to a recycling market. Robotic sortation, we were the first county and actually the first organization in the country to deploy the new AMP Robotics second generation of sorting. This is really significant because we've struggled for years trying to ensure that we had enough labor to do the process sorting. It's a tough job. It's not for everyone. You get vertigo as this material's going down the conveyors, and we've been running short staff since before COVID. When we took over the plant, or I shouldn't say, when I became director about 10 years ago and we looked at that operation, it took about 30 people on the process line to actually physically sort out the recyclables. Today we're down to about 12, and we've been able to add a lot of technology. It hasn't displaced jobs in that we've been unable to fill many of these jobs. So we have 3 robotic sorters now sorting plastics and other material, and it's using artificial intelligence, so it actually looks at and learns our recycling stream and actually improves over time. And I think we're well over 95% accuracy now at what we're selecting out. The last thing that we did, or one of the other things we did, is really stepped up our game around communications. Steve Faber came on about a year and a half ago, and we've completely rethought about how we communicate. I think we were a bit stuck in the 1990s, and Steve pulled us to the somewhere in the 2000s around how we manage our website, how we communicate and work with our residents, and just across the line, social media. I think we've seen huge improvements, and we're really excited about how we're engaging residents and businesses and others and how we communicate today. Key collaborations. Most people probably aren't aware of this, but we work closely with law enforcement. Our waste energy facility is one of the last, it is the last facility in Michigan, but it's actually seen in the Midwest as a facility where law enforcement, everywhere from your local police department at the city level to DEA, U.S. Treasury, there's many law enforcement organizations that use our facility to make sure that they can destroy contraband and other materials that they don't want getting back out into the community. And we also provide a facility. We have an extra home that is on some property that we purchased a number of years ago for landfill expansion, and we provide that facility for law enforcement training, so a lot of the tactical teams are able to use that to give themselves real-world training opportunity in our community. Another collaboration, and thanks to Administrator Vanderberg for taking this up, is we really dove deep this past year around what it means to manage trash in Kent County. Our department is roughly 70. We also have another 50 contract employees through Vicinity Energy and our TEP agency, and we touch a little over 500,000 tons, 500,000 tons of refuse in any given year. And so this past year, as we've thought about our vision of 90% reduction to landfill, the sustainable business park, the bioenergy facility, ALE has taken the group, a municipal advisory group, to really roll up our sleeves and say, okay, so how does all of that work? Because it can be complicated, and better understanding that. So that's been a great opportunity for us to really work closely with administration and, more importantly, with many of our municipalities to think through what that future looks like. Other partnerships, if you've been to the airport, this has been a few years back, but you'll see there's different recycling and containers and things and branding out there. The SORT brand, that's something that was developed with the City of Grand Rapids and Kent County, and it's used at the airport. We have a partnership with the Whitecaps. We have a Green Schools partnership, and we do many tours and community events. Wyoming High School actually reached out to have what's called a design think model, where they look at a problem, they looked at refuse, recycling at their high school, and then they did their own waste audit to better understand, well, what do we generate there? Then they came to our facilities, and they had an opportunity to tour our facilities to find out what the solutions look like. Then they went back and developed solutions. They brought those solutions to us, and then they presented those to their administration. So those are just really helpful, and again, kudos to Steve and his staff, opportunities to engage students in a very thoughtful way, and so we're really pleased that we can provide that to our school community. As we look ahead, we'll continue to optimize our Recycling Education Center. We've done tremendous amounts of upgrades. As I mentioned, between eddy current, robotic sorting, optical sorting, we've got our processing staff lined to about 12. We try to maintain availability at that facility at about 98%. We do have scheduled outages from time to time. The facility does have wear items that we have to step in and repair, but our goal is to make sure that every day that recycling trucks can show up, tip their material there, and that it's going to be processed as efficiently as possible. We're continuing to look for new partnerships around low-value commodities. We just had an announcement that one of our vendors that takes glass is going into bankruptcy. And so we're trying to sort through what other solutions, what other opportunities that we have. They're going to continue to operate, but it just there's just certain materials that are a little tougher than others, and that happens to be a vendor that we have to move the material to Wisconsin. So if we can bring that closer to home and find another partner, that would be great. We have a new website. We've been able to upgrade our website, make it more intuitive and more driven by, you can just type in something that you want to look for, like how do I dispose of oil-based paint, or how do I recycle X? And it will quickly bring you right through our recycling guide. That website, of course, interacts directly with the county's website and will be compatible as the county moves into their new website platform. In the next 18 to 24 months, we'll be completing our $42 million capital refurbishment project at Waste to Energy. It's 33 years old. It's a phenomenal facility, but things wear out. And the facility was designed around 1980s technology. It opened in 1990. And if you can imagine, if you had a cell phone from 1990 as opposed to today, you would go, yeah, it's probably time to make a couple of things a little newer. So around plant controls and new crane systems, that's a picture of the new cranes that were lifted in. They actually had to take the roof off the building, the tip hall floor, to floor hall, and then lower those in. So those new cranes are in place, and we continue to do quite a bit of other refurbishment projects. Some are larger, some are smaller. This crane project was like an 18-month lead time to complete. Also to look ahead, our North Kent Transfer Station, our new facility will be opening probably the end of the first quarter in 2024, so we're excited about that. Excuse me. And as I mentioned, our South Kent landfill will be opening that last cell this spring. The last thing I wanted to mention is that the state is going through what's called a materials management planning process. It used to be called a solid waste planning process. We expect that the director of Eagle will announce probably yet this month or January that they're going to initiate the process. To anticipate that, we did work with county administration, and we wanted to make sure that we had the committee, at least the prospective members, available for future selection. So that happened this past fall, and I believe the committee that's working on those selections will probably take that up in January or February, so we'll be prepared to move forward. It's about a 3-year process. The state is providing fairly significant dollars to help us with that planning process, and will also help us drive that 90% goal of landfill diversion. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Dar. Commissioners. Commissioner Bujak.
Thank you, Chair. A profound thank you, Dar and Steve, for having taken us on a tour this summer. As a new commissioner, and many of us new commissioners, I think we got 101 training on, how recycling works and what the trash dump really is. I'll never forget
Did
standing.
we strand you on the road? Yeah, we were on the highway, weren't we?
No, I wasn't in that group. No,
Okay.
no, but you did take us up on top of the landfill at 108th Street, and I'll never forget watching the trucks, come in and dump off the trash there, and the $1 million vibrating machine shaking the ground around us. It's just kind of overwhelming, and unless you actually go and have that experience, you can sit around and talk trash all you want, but I think the firsthand experience is really important. I wanted to ask a question about the new cell.
Yeah.
It looked like in that picture, it looks like it's all rubber lining. Is that rubber or something?
So that's a 60 millimeter HDPE liner that's chemically and heat fused together, so it comes in like carpet rolls, if you will.
And it looked like it was all kind of pitched to one area where there, maybe you're collecting liquids, or is that part of the process? You gather whatever liquids are coming from that waste?
It is. So the landfill cell itself is a significant design. There's several layers. You have a impervious clay layer, then you have a bentonite layer, then you have that liner system. But in between there, you also build in a leachate collection system. Leachate is basically storm water that infiltrates through, and you have a drain system that collects it, and then we pump that to wastewater treatment plants to be treated. The one challenge that we have, as most landfills do today, is the presence of PFAS. And because the wastewater treatment plants are unable to treat it out, they're looking to us to do that. So for example, at the North Kent landfill, which is already closed, we have a treatment plan in place because we discharge to the North Kent Sewer Authority. With the South Kent landfill, we're working with the city of Wyoming and their wastewater treatment folks. We have a similar facility built out at the waste energy facility because we discharge to the city of Grand Rapids. So we have what's called leachate, which is stormwater that becomes in contact with trash, but we also have what's called contact water, which is any water that contacts trash at a transfer station. We have to capture that and then have it treated.
Yeah, trash is a lot more complicated, just digging a hole and throwing dirt on top of it.
Well, those are the good old days, right? The unlined, unmanaged dump. I think one other mention, along with that 500,000 tons per year that we manage, we have 800 truck deliveries a day moving among all of our facilities. So if you can imagine 800 trucks that are en route somewhere, breaking route, coming, tipping, and then going back out and servicing the community. So there's a lot of moving parts to what we do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I had a question around the dinner table. The conversation came up about getting rid of rechargeable batteries, and a lot of people didn't know what to do. And I was looking it up on the website, and I'm curious about the relationship with is it a national chain of some sort?
Yeah.
Because I was a little bit confused.
Yeah, so there's both. Our household hazardous waste, or Safe Chem, as we've branded it, program, we have 5 locations that are open throughout the week and occasionally on Saturdays. We accept rechargeable batteries through that program at no charge, but there are community partners, I believe like a Home Depot and some of those others, because they sell so many tools that have those batteries. I think it's the Rechargeable Battery Corporation, RBRC or something.
Okay.
I'm digging way back in my memory, but that's my recollection. So there are some drop-offs at certain retailers, but we take them all day long. The challenge with rechargeables, and particularly with lithium ion, is when they come through our process, if we can't capture them ahead of time, you end up often breaking those open. And lithium is water reactive, but it actually reacts to the water or to the moisture in the air. And there's industry fires across the country. We experienced about $100,000 worth of damage in a fire from a lithium battery at our recycling center about a year ago. And so we are very vigilant. And unfortunately, or fortunately, almost everything you buy today is cordless, right? So there's just more and more of those batteries in the system. So we're really looking for state and national help, along with the residents, to pitch in and roll up their sleeves to the best of their ability to try to get those batteries out. The vape pens, I don't know that you can get the battery out, but that's an example of something that has a lithium battery in it. We do have landfill fires. We discover them after hours, like on a Sunday morning, we'll get a call. We have fires that occur in our transfer trailers. We can move about 30 tons in these large transfer trailers. You'll get a hot spot somewhere and you've got to dump the whole load. I've talked to the city of Grand Rapids and other haulers. They'll have a fire in their truck and they have to dump the load as quickly as possible so they don't lose their truck. So thanks for asking that question. We're really bullish about accepting and getting those recyclable batteries out of the stream.
Yeah, and so I was wondering, so that is your own personal operation, our
Yeah,
county
as a-
operation
yes, as a-
accepting those batteries?
As a
Okay.
county, we operate our Safe Chem program. We have 5
Yeah,
sites
okay.
where we accept the rechargeables.
Yeah, okay.
But there are some retailers that do it
Okay.
outside of what we do.
Okay, wonderful. And I just had a question. Could you just tell us a little bit more about this swap shop? How does that work? I've never heard of that before.
It's so cool. So we came up with this idea a number of years ago. One, because we recognize there's so much material that residents bring in, right, for any number of reasons. And two, it's expensive to dispose of it. So what we have at our admin offices on Wealthy, and the hours are on our website, and Steve may know them by heart, but anytime that facility is open to take electronics and recyclables, or electronics and safe chem materials, our resource recovery specialists actually go through everything that comes in, and they deem what is still reusable. It's either new or gently used. So we get carpet cleaners, aerosol paints, lawn care, like fertilizers and lighter fluid and propane, little propane cylinders, the amount of motor oil and transmission fluids and Armor All and right, all of that. And so we have a whole store, retail set up for residents to come in, and they just, all we ask is that they just let us know what they took and they sign the fact that it came in and it's used, and we're not liable for it. And then just bring it back if you can't use it, or bring it back when you're finished with it. So we're probably moving, I'm just going to grab a number. I bet we moved $30,000 of retail material back into the community this year, from residents that sometimes they're moving, or a parent passes away, or you name it. There's hoarders out there too, and they're like, here's 23 of the same thing. I bought them and never used them. So that's what that's really intended for. We have stains and paints and deck sealers and deck cleaners and you name it. If you can find it at a hardware store or at like a Home Depot, you can probably find it by us.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm glad Carol could get those 30 cans of motor oil out of her garage, so. Commissioner Pakla.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be brief because I get to ask Dar lots of questions on the Board of Public Works. But I was seeing all of the great work that's happened at the recycling center this year, and also recalling that our recycling rates are pretty low in the county. So two-part question both about the recycling center. One is, what's on the docket in terms of cool new toys that we're thinking about at the recycling center to increase the efficiency of stuff once it gets there?
Yeah.
But then also sort of what's in the works, or what are some ways in which we as a county or we as commissioners can encourage that recycling rate to tick upwards, right? Because I think my recollection is that we're around 25 to 30%.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Commissioner. Cool new toys, I think we're fairly maxed out on cool new toys. With the 3 robotic sorters and the 2 optical sorters and the eddy current, like for example, there are fewer and fewer bottle return bottles making it back to the retailer. When that program first started in the 70s, I think the redemption rate was almost 100%, like in the high 90s. And now it's in the high 80%. And while a lot of those go to the trash, a lot of people are still putting them in the recycling container. Well, for us, I think we did an estimate a few years ago that 6 million deposit containers are going through our recycling center annually. And if you imagine trying to hand sort 6 million containers a year, so we installed an eddy current which energizes that aluminum and makes it act like steel, like ferrous, so that it'll energize it and it'll automatically sort it out. So we're no longer touching those containers. So we put a corrugated sorter in that reduced our staff needs by about 4 to 6. We put in the eddy current, I think that reduced it by 2 to 4. We put in the 3 opticals, or the 2 opticals. When our optical sorter went down a few years ago from a lightning strike, we had 12 people trying to sort water bottles, and they couldn't keep up with that optical sorter. So it's those types of technologies. You absolutely have to have them because it's all about efficiency. It's all about how quickly and cleanly you can sort these materials, because it's all about cost. So those are the types of things that we've deployed. So I think the robotic sorters are probably the last big thing. The plant is now 13 years old. It opened in 2010. So conveyors and other things are needing some, kind of the less sexy stuff, I guess you would say, that we'll be focusing on the next year or two. In terms of improving the recycling rate, the challenge that we have is that only about 25%, and Steve sometimes looks at that number a little differently because you can define it, but let's just use 25%. Only about 25% of the recyclables make it to the right container so that we can actually process them out. So the question that we keep asking is, what can we do to either improve the recycling rate or improve the diversion rate? And there's really two paths, and I'll answer it real quickly. The recycling rate, if we doubled the recycling rate residentially, so we went from 25% to 50%, that would be a huge win. But our diversion rate overall would only change by 4% because there's so much more in the waste stream. And then the other question is how many carts do you want to put at the road? And so that's why we've been talking about a potentially, the first line of defense is always that recycling cart. The second line of defense is making sure that when we throw something in our trash cart, we can evaluate it and move it back into a value stream. And so much of it is food waste. And so as we talk to commissioners and direct to your question, that's, I think, what's in front of us right now is how do we begin to address that? There's a lot of state and national focus on food waste, and we'll see more and more of that in the future.
Thank you, Chair. I have two quick questions. I think one of them you may have already answered it, but I was concerned that I read earlier this year that the recycling center was shut down for, I think, at least a couple of times. And so I was thinking, like, what happens when those are shut down and everything's going to the incinerator? But unless I'm mistaken, it looks like the North Kent transfer station might be an answer to that if one of those goes down and the other one could potentially be used while the other one's getting up and running. Is that?
So our
would that be correct?
challenge in Kent County, and really we process recyclables for about 8 counties today. The challenge is that we have a single line, dual line. That means you have 2 of everything in the same building, so you can do maintenance on one and keep the other one running. That's what we have at the waste energy facility, where we'll take one boiler down, but one stays up, and then we switch over because everything needs maintenance and repair. Right. The North Kent transfer station drop-off has some capacity to collect and store, but it does not have the capacity to process, which is why it's so mission critical that we keep that recycling center up and operational, and our goal is like 98% plus of the time. But when you go through a refurbishment, for example, we had to put those robots in, we had to replace our glass breaking and collection system and some other things. Every plant needs to go into downtime. There's probably not a facility here in West Michigan or across the state, including automotive, that doesn't have downtime so they can refurbish or repair or change out equipment. We're kind of the only game around. So unfortunately, what we try to do is at least have the residents send it to waste to energy, and we communicate to their hauler, so at least we're capturing the energy value and the scrap steel through our magnet system. But the reality is when our facility is down, your recyclables aren't being processed.
Okay. And then I guess my second question is more taking a bigger look at our waste in general. And it's great to try to focus on the diversion rate and recyclables and whatnot. But I think probably the biggest part of what we haven't discussed here as much, and I know it's not really having to do with you all, but is the production of all of these items that are very hard or next to impossible to recycle. I was recently reading an article about comparing microplastics to nanoplastics, and how a microplastic, you can see it at the tip of your finger, and a nanoplastic, you can't. It's that much smaller. And even the experts know very little about them. And so, I've been reading that the state is considering giving some local control back to local governments as far as banning single-use plastics and other things like that. Do you think that should be a worthwhile conversation that we should have at the county if that ends up happening at the state level?
I think it's always worth a conversation. Ultimately, the commissioners who are the elected officials have to make the decision if it's best for our community. We certainly try, our department, we serve on a number of different committees. Like I'm on Energy Michigan as a director. I'm on the Circular Economy Board. It's a national one as a director, where we're having those conversations with the likes of Pepsi and Ford and GM and not to name drop, but national and international companies who are also struggling with that same thing because it's complex. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, what we're dealing with is what's in the truck and what's coming out of the cart. Certainly upstream is good, and we can have those conversations. It should continue, but we're just a small part
Yeah.
of that conversation. You probably will never hear our department say you should ban plastic water bottles. But on the other hand, we'd certainly like to capture everything that's in the waste stream. But we're always happy to have those conversations and be influential where the commissioners would like us to be.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. I was a new commissioner when you started to work on building the recycling facility there on Wellesley. And at that time, you worked closely with the neighborhood and to answer their concerns. And I will say that that has always been the case. You will show up at the neighborhood meetings as you begin to make changes there, close off roads, put up fences, do landscaping. And for that, I've always been appreciative that you have been accessible to the West Side neighborhoods, and particularly to the neighborhood association, and working with them. It is, you would think that this kind of a facility might be very unattractive, and it's not. It's just not. And it's, it has the landscaping and the barriers around it, and it's been and when that errant truck gets on a local road, you take care of it right away and make sure that they know that they're, not allowed there on Garfield or, Richards or some other local road. And your work with the community is appreciated.
You're welcome. There's times when it can be pretty crazy inside the building, but we try to keep it cool, calm, and collective on the outside, so thank you.
Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Burrow. Dar, thanks for being here. It's a difficult and challenging job for you, I'm sure, from several fronts. But you had mentioned the bottle bill, the recycling rates going down, and that's unfortunate. But I think one of the things that might need to be looked at is just the bottle bill itself. Retailers can still reject things that they don't sell. And you just go by over the past few years, the introductions of seltzers, craft brews, and they've got like 20 different varieties. I'm guilty of this too. When a thing is rejected, I just put it in my recycle bin and not bother to find out where I got it or who. But that might be something, we can work together as this committee to take a strong look on a lot of things about that, especially the reimbursement for your cost of, accepting those into the stream. My next point is more of a question. So we talked a little bit about lithium batteries and the difficulty of recycling that. So down the road, when all these electric cars that everyone's going to be owning, those batteries go, do we have a long-term plan? I mean, will we be a player of that, or will there be facilities that just strictly recycle car batteries?
Yeah, I think that's more of a commercial, industrial issue when you think of batteries of that size, given their weight and the complexity. I mean, we take everything up to automotive batteries, which many times are still lead acid, but we have literally 55-gallon drums full of the type of battery that you snap into the bottom of your drill, DeWalt and Milwaukee and all the awesome brands that are out there. So we take all of those, but we are simply, we're just kind of hub and spoke. We accept them, we package them correctly, because you have to be careful that the terminals don't touch when you package them, otherwise you'll start a fire en route in the truck or in your building. And then we contract with a company that then takes them to that next level of processing, who then breaks down the components and recycles them. The large batteries, I really think that's going to be a private sector. It could be a public-private collaborative effort, but at the end of the day, I think the technology and the wherewithal to recycle the batteries is going to be much like what it takes to build one. So I think it's complex enough that Public Works, that would be a real one-off for us, but we can be part of the conversation.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a few years out. I think the lifespan is 5 to 10 years, so. But, if it comes to that, the amount of electric cars that they say they're going to build, I'm still skeptical of that. That would be a field that I think that we may look at joining in and buck the trend of just the private sector is going to pick and choose what they want and maybe enter that field. I don't know. So,
Well, I mean, most, just with your lead acid battery, like a Napa or another auto parts store, they do take them and they actually pay you, right, $7 or whatever the state mandated value is. But we still get dozens, if not hundreds, on a monthly basis for whatever reason. And we're happy to take them, and so we're part of that solution. So maybe we can be a part of that bigger solution in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other commissioner comment? All right, seeing none, I'll just leave my 2 cents. Again, privileged to serve on the DPW board, so I already know a lot of this information, but if we can get a single cart and take that 800 trucks down to about 400 trucks on the road a day, I think that would be a big success in the future. So hopefully at some point in time, we can get there. So appreciate it, Dar, and thank you so much for you, Steve, and your team.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
All right, you too. All right. Next item on our agenda, medical examiner, Dr. Cole. We should have brought a big present with a bow and a model of a new medical examiner facility is what we should have brought for you today as a Christmas gift, and you'd probably appreciate that.
That'd be great. But continuing on the theme of recycling, we'll carry on. And you'll see how the recycling fits in. So this is the overview of a few things I'm going to talk about. Unfortunately, I and my partner are not exactly gracing this slide, but there we are for all to see. Dave Start and I, he's the deputy chief. And then we have listed our staff of investigators, our administrative staff, which is 1 now. We're hoping to get her help, Brittany Richardson, and I want to give her a shout out for helping to prepare this presentation as well as the annual report that I think we have a number of copies of for consumption. So our strategic goals, which pretty much this is the same every year because we're functioning according to the state medical examiner law. So, and if there are questions, I'll be glad to address them. But we are to investigate and determine the cause and manner of death in certain cases that are referred to us, which is basically all accidents, all suicides, all homicides, unexpected deaths, particularly in younger individuals who die outside of a hospital. And those are most of what we do. The nuts and bolts of how we do it, I'll show in a few slides to come about our turnaround time, basically. But our investigative case reports and autopsies, which are 2 of the main things that we produce, our goal is to complete those within 3 months and hopefully within a lot less, but it depends on the kind of case and the complexity. And then we work with police primarily in death notification when someone has died unexpectedly, and when there is a scene for our investigators to go to, and usually that would be somebody who has died in a crash or a homicide and they have been pronounced dead at the scene and haven't been transported to a hospital. When there's one of those scene deaths, then we want to get an investigator there within at least an hour of them being called. Now, our investigators, very briefly, all of them are private contractors. So they don't work out of an office and they don't take a shift. We have 8 of them, and we have a call center service, which was mentioned on the previous slide, and they find whoever's the first person up, notify them, but sometimes the first person up can't respond. So it can take a while, and that's why our goal remains at 1 hour. And usually we do better than that in responding to a call for an investigator. And then we also work with families in notifying them. Particularly if it's an unexplained death, families obviously may be interested in wanting a call back about how their loved one died. And so we work with them on that. Now, sometimes families don't answer phones when we call them, but basically we make an attempt to notify them, particularly if they, when they have a desire to know. Frankly, if it's a shooting, homicide, then they pretty much know, and they don't usually need to be notified, but we will respond if they have questions. So communication with the public is kind of the bottom line here. So there are some, well, kind of small metrics here. So excuse me while I check them out. Basically, the first one, the upper left, the cost per case has roughly been flat. The contract that the pathology group, of which I'm a member, and Dr. Start is a member, our group negotiates with the county for a professional fee for doing the autopsies, and that has a cost of living attachment. I think it's around 3%. So that will slightly increase that component. The other part of the billing for an autopsy is the technical component, which Corewell Health provides. They provide currently the morgue and a lot of the other lab services. Then our number of autopsies, as you can see, lower left, has been about flat, 370, 380 autopsies a year. This is for Kent County. I will say that we also do somewhere around 100 autopsies for other counties that don't have a forensic pathologist. We do, our biggest customer, I guess I would say, would be Ottawa County, but we do some for a bunch of other counties, Mackinac, Luce County, Chippewa County, Branch County, we had one yesterday. And so a number of smaller counties we do autopsies for as well. Let's see, our accepted cases, right upper diagram. Again, slightly increases. I see we are a little bit down 2022 over 2021. I think that we had a few more in 2020 and 2021 because of COVID. We did not autopsy a lot of those because oftentimes they were diagnosed as COVID but then died at home. And so they would be reportable to us, but not necessarily autopsied. And if there are questions about who gets an autopsy and who doesn't, we can save that for later. And then we're pretty constant, around 98, 99% of cases on the right lower in terms of cases that are completed within the 3-month period. Just a couple of things that may take longer than 3 months. If we have someone that has overdosed or possibly overdosed on a drug that's very unusual, we have a reference lab out in the Philadelphia area that we use for our more esoteric testing, and it may take them time to do an analysis on an unusual drug. Another thing that can take time is in some individuals, this is kind of the latest in the field of forensic pathology, some people who die suddenly, all of our testing is negative, particularly in a young person. So these are very difficult cases. We can do genetic testing. We use a lab out in California, Invitae, and that can, but doesn't always, I'd say we're about a 20% or so rate of identifying a potential mutation in these people's DNA that might be lethal. So we still end up with a fair amount of cases that we just can't determine, and they'll be listed as indeterminable, and I'll have a slide about the manners of death in just a minute. So this is one source of revenue, cremation permits, which I guess are getting quite popular over more and more over the years. So that what we do, our role in that is our office generates a cremation permit when there's a request for a cremation. So we review whatever information we need to, at least the death certificate, and sometimes we end up reviewing medical records on a case where there's a cremation because we want to make sure we're not cremating somebody that, oops, needed an autopsy or needs further information. I will comment that in medical schools, there's virtually no training, zero training in how to complete a death certificate and which cases need to have involvement from the medical examiner. So we've got doctors that are not obviously on our staff signing death certificates sometimes as a death due to some kind of trauma. An old person with a fractured hip or whatever, if it's a traumatic death, it has to be reviewed and certified by us, not them. So if they incorrectly sign out a death certificate, it's going to bounce back to us, and we have to start the process from the get-go. But at any rate, we do generate some money with cremation permits, and as I briefly mentioned later, also from selling reports. If people or insurance companies need an autopsy report, for example, or an investigator report, or both, we can charge for those. Our caseload, again, has been relatively flat over the last several years, and this somewhat complicated slide has a breakdown of the different kinds of deaths, which I'll show in another slide, but the accident, suicide, homicide, natural or indeterminable categories are listed. And it's pretty much the same for the most part, month to month. December is a little busier, perhaps. I think we get a few more suicides over the holidays. This slide, cases by race and ethnicity, I think just reflects the demographics of our county, pretty much. Age, and I hate to say it, but of course the older people like myself, we're represented by far the highest in the cases that we investigate. Most of these are people who have fallen, they're at the nursing home or assisted living or something, they fall, fracture a hip, and they just can't tolerate it. They cannot tolerate surgery, or if they do have surgery, they don't recover, and so their death ultimately is due to injuries from that fall, and that's why we have so many. Other situations are that we'll have an elderly person, maybe they're not in a facility, they're in their own home or in an apartment, but they're found dead. And so a found dead case is a kind of death that we have to investigate, and that's why, of course, there are so many in the older age group. This is deaths by manner of death, so we see up there natural through indeterminate are the manners of death that we as medical examiners have to choose from. So in any medical examiner, or any population, I should say, the greatest percent of deaths, around 60% or so, 55, 60, is going to be natural. Accidents are always number two. Now, what's changed in the accidental category is it used to be car crashes till about 7 or 8 years ago, and ever since before that, car crashes were the commonest type of accidental deaths. But with the arrival of fentanyl, particularly, now drug overdoses are the commonest accidental death. Suicides, homicides are always a fairly low percentage, with about twice as many suicides as homicides. And then the indeterminate deaths are ones we just don't have enough information, and it's not obtainable. It may be a severely decomposed body found dead. The internal organs are too decomposed to make a meaningful examination of. Or, as I mentioned earlier, usually young folks who die suddenly with all the testing we do is negative, including genetic testing. Those are presumed naturals, but we don't really know, so we call them indeterminate. And this is about, again, in any larger county, I would say about right, roughly 1% of all the deaths we investigate. We just can't come up with a definitive answer. Drug overdose deaths, what has changed? We have in the left column the drug of first mention. So that would mean that whatever death Dr. Start or I, or whatever drug that we feel is most important, is going to go down as one. A lot of people die of multiple drugs, alcohol and heroin, or alcohol and fentanyl, or whatever. But the drug of first mention is usually the one that's most important. And as we can see, numero uno is narcotic analgesics, which is oxycodone, hydrocodone, and fentanyl is by far the biggest one. Morphine is another one that we see occasionally. But fentanyl is about 98% of our opiate deaths, and most of the drugs, I think, are coming from Mexico, smuggled across the border, and another source is China. So that accounts, that is fentanyl accounts for the vast majority of our overdose deaths, with a scattering of others. In that left column, for example, the antidepressants and antipsychotics, if they overdose on those, it's a suicide pretty much, because those aren't drugs of abuse. So, accomplishments. We have kept in the top category on the left, we have maintained our certification by the National Association of Medical Examiners. I think we're going on something like 10 years. So this is a national standard for performance and running the office. Thank goodness again for Brittany, our office administrator, and facilities, although I will say our current facilities aren't very good, and they've kind of given us a pass on those. I think the inspectors have felt that the quality of the work is probably more important than the facilities, about which most of us don't have a lot of control. But so we are pleased that we have maintained our certification by the what we call NAME, National Association of Medical Examiners. Another problem that we have, number 2, is unclaimed bodies. And thanks to the cooperation of several funeral homes in our area who will help with burials of unclaimed bodies, these are unclaimed either because the family, we can't find the family even with the help of the police, or a lot of times the family just says, no, I don't want anything to do with this person. So then we are stuck with having to get a burial. There's a paltry amount of money for these cases that the state provides, and so several of our local funeral homes are willing to take that minute amount of money and at least provide a burial. Occasionally we cremate people. I think that's an option that we have, but we have traditionally not necessarily done very many cremations on unclaimed bodies because of the unlikely possibility that the family might show up and say, oh, we wanted to bury our uncle, even though we didn't claim him for a year or two. But anyway, so we can provide, we with the help of these funeral homes, can provide for a burial of these unclaimed bodies. Gift of Life, this is the recycling. Gift of Life is the organ procurement organization for Michigan. They're out of Ann Arbor, and they facilitate harvesting of tissue, either organs, if there's a brain-dead beating heart donor, so they can take, or they can facilitate the transplant of hearts, lungs, livers, kidneys, mainly. But those are a pretty small minority of our cases. Most people are like completely dead by the time we get a chance to intervene. So they can still harvest skin and bone, occasionally hearts for the heart valves that they can cut out and transplant into patients. And we are the second highest, I guess I'd say, donor of counties, or we're the second highest county that has provided tissue and organs for the Gift of Life, and I think we're 4th in population. So the only county that does more would be Wayne, which is what, about twice our population, I would say. Interestingly, Oakland provides almost nothing, even though I believe they're the second. Them or forgot the other county over in the next to Wayne, Macomb. We do better than those two as well. So we're pleased with that, and they are pleased with us, the Gift of Life people. And then the last one, we did generate around $338,000 in revenue from the cremation permits and from selling the reports that people request. So looking ahead, our main goal, I guess, would be to get a new morgue built. Our current facility, we've been in for just about 40 years in the basement of Blodgett, and there are various problems with that, which I won't go into now for time, but we're hopeful to get implementation and building of a new morgue facility that will suit the needs that we have and the county has for years to come. So, with that, any questions?
All right, Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Burrow. Dr. Cole, thanks for being here today. In a previous visit here, you had mentioned that, I mean, we've got working agreements where we do autopsies for other counties, but I think you had mentioned that when someone dies in our county, the home county bears the cost of that. Have the state made any adjustments to that to reimburse more fairly instead of just us bearing the whole cost?
So just to repeat and clarify the question, so when we get somebody brought in like to the trauma center up the hill at Butterworth, and they die, that becomes a Kent County problem, no matter where the accident occurred. And that's been going on since time immemorial, and nothing's been done to fix it. Now, it's been our position, and under my predecessor, Dr. Mack, he tried mightily to get these other counties to pony up, because that they're the whatever, Battle Creek or wherever they come from, Calhoun County or Ionia, whatever, that's the county where the interest is, right? If an incident occurred there, they're the ones who are going to benefit. However, the state has made no provision for that. I will say, maybe due to Al, but Ottawa County has always paid. They're injured in Ottawa, they come over here, we bill them and they pay. But that's the exception rather than the rule. And so that's that situation. I think the deal is, very quickly, is just now I'm doing an op-ed, but county hospitals, particularly smaller ones, they don't want people dying there. So they want to get them out. If looks like they're not going to make it, they want to ship them over here. And so it's partly a numbers game, I think, and a money game maybe. But yeah, so we end up, if somebody's shot up north and they send them down here and they die, it's a homicide, we bear the issue of having to do the autopsy and court testimony and stuff like that.
All right, Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. If we could go back to that slide about the accidental deaths, I wasn't quite understanding how the statistics lined up with the with what you were saying. So you said that drug overdose has overtaken car accidents?
It has.
Okay. It says of the 453 accidents, 0.2% were, 26%. I see. Okay, I was reading this wrong.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. You solved it yourself.
I solved it myself just like that.
Commissioner Bujak.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Cole, thank you for being here. I was excited to hear from you today. You're one of the unsung heroes here in the county, providing services that pretty much no one wants.
True.
So, I mean, nobody really wants the coroner to show up. But my question is regarding the new facility and the completion and transfer of your operations from where you currently are. What is the timing on that? Has anyone shared that with you yet?
Well, not precisely, because to be honest, I mean, it's not exactly knowable. However, my estimate, and Al comment if need be, 2 to 3 years optimally.
Wow.
What the hurdle is getting enough money, and I think initially I think there's a point in here that initially I think $6 million from this ARPA money was set aside. Well, turns out you can't build a facility that we need for anywhere close to that. So that's something that's going to have to be worked out. I'm hopeful. But given the fact that if that does get worked out and the funding is there for a facility that we need, then 2 to 3 years is what I think. I think there's a timing on this ARPA money, right, Al? You got to use it in 2 or 3 years, I think, or spend it.
Yes.
So that's an issue. I mean, that's, something that's a consideration.
If I could just say, Doc, one other thing would just be, we are looking at what exactly we're going to build and what can be phased. I think the initial design has some things we might not need for some time. And so the question is, can you build it and still have it look right if you were to expand it in the future when you actually need some of the things that are being built in? Maybe too much detail for today, but I just wanted to mention the other side of costs is what do we actually build? And I don't think we're quite settled on what exactly we're going to build either, so.
And then final question is, is there an opportunity for any of the commissioners to come to the medical, I know you're really busy, but can we get an opportunity to come and see, this place and what you're doing there?
Yeah, our current facility, yes. The answer is yes, and we've occasionally had, I don't know if any of the group here's come, but we've occasionally had commissioners come over, and so, yeah, I mean, we're more than glad to show, here's where we are now, and point out what we need. So, Brittany could help arrange that as far as timing. Usually, we'd probably have it, I'm getting too detailed here, probably have it in the afternoon, because most of the time we're doing cases in the morning, like today, actually. There'd be plenty to show and talk about if anyone
And
could
then you said it's in the basement of Blodgett?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to take that to it.
Okay, would love to have you as a living person.
Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. I'm going to ask an open-ended question, so I'm really at risk of your talking a little bit, because I know you like to talk about your profession here. But what does your crystal ball see in terms of changes in your profession? I mean, it could be the cooperation between counties, it might be the medical standards, it might be technology, just, and as we plan for this facility, just open-ended.
You mean like nationwide?
Well, how it's nationwide,
Or here.
but how it's going to affect us here in Kent County
Local.
in the future years. I mean, we're planning and building for the future, so tell me, take out your crystal ball. What does it mean?
Well, I think there are several issues, and if I don't address them, or all of them, then, you can re-ask. But one of the issues is succession, because I'm not a spring chicken. And my general goal, sort of at a minimum, is to keep working, and hopefully I'm able to do so effectively. But anyway, keep working until we're installed in the new facility. Because Dr. Start and I have been given the chance to give input, into what we need. We've had lots of meetings with the architects and builders, and we've made some progress with blueprints in telling what we need and so on. So succession is one issue, and then it's kind of tied to the new facility. As we need a facility that has enough space and square footage and so on to hopefully last well into the future. Right now, what we have is totally inadequate at Blodgett, which is the way it's been, because that's the only place we've ever really had a morgue for the last nearly 40 years. But and then another issue along with that will be finding somebody. It's kind of all tied up. In other words, I'll have, one way or another, I'm going to be out of here eventually. I hope on my own terms. But so, I'll be, and Dr. Start, though he's younger than I am, I don't know how much longer he's going to stay around after I do. He may retire at the same time. But at any rate, is the supply, here's my point, of young forensic pathologists or mid-career forensic pathologists is very, very low. Nobody wants to go into it. No medical students, very few I should say, want to go into this profession because they're kind of channeled into working with living people, understandably. But somebody's got to do this job. So finding someone is a challenge, and part of it, I think, and at least in my opinion, as far as replacing me and Start, is we got to have a good facility because there's competition all over the country. Florida has a lot of openings, for example, and I wouldn't want to live there, but obviously a lot of people do. And so, we would be competing with them and other places that might be desirable as well. And but if we don't have a good facility or an adequate facility, they're not going to come because they have other choices. So that's kind of in the immediate mix, I guess, for us. We actually, I will say on the positive side, we've not been restricted in which cases we autopsy or don't autopsy. Every year we send in a budget, of course. We submit a budget, and you all have to approve it. And that's the main thing that's based on is how many autopsies do we think we're going to have. Nobody's ever said, you got to quit after a certain number. If we exceed the number that we've estimated, Well, the county just has to pay for it. And we did that 2 or 3 years ago. Mostly, I think we've been under budget. But at any rate, so all I'm saying is our support has been good. Nobody's ever said you can't do this or that, or some of the tests that we want to run, some of them are expensive, such as the genetic testing. Nobody's ever said you can't do that. So I'm grateful for that. And that is something we can offer that a lot of other places can't, that their budgets are so tight for operations and autopsies that they're just, unfortunately, sometimes can't do cases that need to be done. So we've never had that. And there's been basically a good relationship between our office and the police and the public and public health, and I think the commissioners overall. So that's a good. But the challenge is going to be getting the morgue and hopefully getting it, making it a desirable enough and useful enough place so that we can have an orderly transition, whenever I step down and Dr. Stark does. So I've probably gone over time. I don't know. Anything else? Or?
I see Commissioner Hennessy still leaning into her microphone, so I was waiting for one more question.
Cooperation. Commissioner Ponstein was asking about this. Do you see more, as we build this, build it and they shall come? Sometimes, I don't know if that will be the case or not, but do you see more cooperation between counties being in our future with this enhanced facility?
That's an unknown. Counties, this is my observation from just having been around for a while, though not in, thankfully for me, not in county government, but it's like herding cats. And there have been, getting different counties to work together on a project, at least regarding the medical examiner stuff. And years ago, we made an attempt, Kent County did in 2008, to build a new morgue. And then the stock market crashed. We were fairly far along, hadn't broken ground, but anyway, fairly far along, but then the stock market crashed and there went that. But while that was in the planning, there were some talks between Kent and Ottawa, for example, which would be a natural kind of a marriage, if you will, because Ottawa County is about half our size or so population-wise, but still has a fair number of cases. And I suspect, sorry, I'm waxing too long, but I suspect that there's going to come a day when the pathologists in Ottawa, there are a couple, they're not forensically trained, but they, I guess out of the goodness of their hearts, do some of the accidents, some of the more simple medical examiner autopsies, and they do them now, but generally pathologists in training, they hate autopsies, and they don't want to do them. And for various reasons, which we can go into later, not now. But at any rate, so they're going to either retire or get tired of doing autopsies. This happened in Marquette. That's why we're getting some Upper Peninsula cases where they said, we're not going to do any more autopsies. Somebody's got to do them. So if it's Ottawa where that happens, and it might well be in the fairly near future, then we're going to have to absorb them. And so there's that kind of cooperation. I think the commissioners probably in Ottawa and would be okay if the autopsies are done here as long as they get done. And there's some other counties that potentially might want to sign, say, a contract with us, especially with a new facility that might attract counties to send in bodies. So there's nothing definite, though. There's no deals that we have. Like if you build, somebody saying to us, if you guys build an adequate or a really good facility, we'll send you the bodies. But I think it would happen to some degree, and Ottawa's the most likely and the biggest county in our area.
Commissioner Hennessy, you're leaning in again.
Yeah, I am. One more follow-up. What role does your office have in emergency preparedness?
So what role do we have in emergency preparedness? Well, we work with the county. They have, I don't know exactly the title, it's part of the Sheriff's Department, an emergency office. We have met with them. We don't meet regularly, but we've discussed plans such as where in the airport, if there's a mass disaster, identifying a hangar where we could work and set up a temporary morgue and getting refrigerated trucks. So that's kind of in the works. In fact, I'm sure there's a plan written down, which I would have to dig out, just because I don't think there are a lot of area-wide meetings, but I have attended them in the past, multi-institutional or multi-departmental meetings and so on. And so that's the basic plan. Plus, finally, there is a national disaster mortuary team called DMORT that is on call if a local medical examiner is overwhelmed with lots of bodies, then there are these people that can be mobilized. It's a U.S. government-sponsored agency, but there are people who are willing to come in and help out handling the cases.
Very good question, Commissioner Hennessy. Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you, and I'll be quick. I, in my day job, work advocating for mostly a universal healthcare system, universal single-payer healthcare system at the state level. There's already a bill, HB 4893, and so I'll probably reach out outside of this meeting to get your input on that, because admittedly, we spend a lot more time talking about how that would impact the living and not as much time on how it would impact those who have died already. And so it'd be great to get your opinion and your thoughts on that. More specifically here to Kent County though, there's currently a lot of conversations being had around more environmentally friendly way that we can take care of those who have deceased outside of cremation and embalming. And so I was curious as to your thoughts on kind of similar to Commissioner Hennessy's point in your crystal ball, what are some things that may be coming down the pipeline? What can we do here at the county level, and what would have to be done at the state level to go down that route?
Well, that's not been something, I think it's a relevant and important topic. That's not something that has, I guess, come up officially, even in the national and state meetings. I'm lucky enough to be able to go to at least one national forensic meeting a year, and then we have a state medical examiner organization. I think that's a relevant topic, because I'm all for recycling, and regarding the new morgue, hopefully, that we'll get, I've heard about LEEDS certification. I think like the relatively new courthouse may have that. And I was told by the architects, don't bother that because it's way too expensive and it's unnecessary, but we can make it LEEDS compatible, which is about the same. So my point is, I'm all for it. I just don't know exactly, I think this is something I'd have to educate myself on. Like cremations, sure, I think that's going to cause some pollution. I suspect that the relative amount of that isn't very great compared to burning fossil fuel. But still, if anything, I'd be for anything that we can do to do it cleaner. And maybe even, who knows, maybe biological ways of, bacteria or other organisms could be used to help break down a body, like compost or something. Honestly, I'm just pulling this out because it hasn't been a specific issue that's come up. And of course, the cremation involves formaldehyde, which is a carcinogen, and that's another important topic that I think needs to be addressed. I don't know exactly how yet, but I'd be glad to talk with you about it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely schedule some time to follow up with you. Probably not in your actual facilities. I don't think I'm as willing to go there as Commissioner Bujak. But I will definitely follow up. Thank you.
We'll figure out a place, maybe coffee somewhere.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions? All right, you are the one topic of this commission's conversations, and I believe there's been typically unanimous support on your new facility and what you'll need to operate that. Again, I think, my opinion, I think most commissioners, attracting top talent to Kent County is what we want, and obviously a new medical examiner's facility would help us with that, and it might even give you a little longer run than you think. So hopefully we can give you what you want so you don't retire on us anytime soon.
Well, I'm going to try to semi-retire whenever I slow down, but that's up to, currently, that's up to my colleagues in the pathology group that I work in, and they might want to get rid of me, but at least or maybe they want me to work part-time, I don't know. But the main thing is getting, full-time young help that are enthusiastic. And I think, honestly, I've been here forever. This is the only job I've ever had here in Kent County, and I think it's great. It's gotten better than when I signed on years and years ago. So I think it's a great place to live and raise a family and all those sorts of things. And if we can get a good facility, that'd be kind of the icing on the cake as far as attracting
Just
talent.
when we have that ribbon cutting ceremony, just hold off on that resignation letter right away. Push it off a little bit.
Okay, I can do that. I'm excited about getting the facility, so I'm
So are
hopeful.
we. Dr. Cole, thank you again so much. Commissioners, great questions. Again, I think we've learned a lot in our last several different presentations from folks. So again, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next item on our agenda, brought to us from the board office, appointments to various boards, commissions, and committees for 2024. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by LeGrand, supported by Pakala. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Hennessy, it was the three questions you had before that I missed, went over you there. Any comments, questions, concerns? Commissioner Bujak.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to make a quick thank you to all the commissioners who participated in the interviewing process. I was part of that myself, spent some 8 hours of time looking at resumes and actually interviewing these candidates. So for all the other commissioners that were participating, kudos to all of you. I think it's a great process that we have, and the candidates that came from that process, I think the county is very lucky to have such a very deep opportunity with this talent that we found, and I'm definitely going to support this.
Thank you. Commissioner Pakala.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to the appreciation for my commission colleagues in the process, wanted to also appreciate all of the applicants. We had a really deep bench of applicants to review from the board appointment proposal perspective, and also strongly encourage anybody that's interested to continue to apply. It's a great process, and we have lots of spaces that need filling in the future. So thank you.
All right, again, I'd like to thank Commissioner DeBoer and Teal for chairing and the commissioners that participated. These are things that do come up throughout the year, so if your name has not been called, there'll be other opportunities, because it will happen. Again, I totally agree. Our pool of applicants, our last 2 rounds have been absolutely phenomenal. Excellent. Staff did a great job doing a new little system this year. I think we'll get better and better with it, but really that base of having that, I think is going to set us off to make it even easier down the road. So thank you for staff for that hard work and working with IT and the different organizations to make that easier for us. Again, I always encourage folks that live in your community to serve on these boards and commissions. And again, having these wonderful presentations lately, I think they've been very valuable to me over probably the last month or two, really kind of learning more about what people are doing, what boards are out there, what our community can participate in. So that's been very good for me, so we can encourage our residents to apply for those spots. All right, so we have a motion and support on the floor. All those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed? That has been moved to our meeting on the 11th. Next item on our agenda, brought to us by the Health Department, add 1 full-time clerk 2 position for the Breast and Cervical Cancer Control Navigation Program. Can I have a motion, please? I have a motion by Hennessy, support by Diaz. All right. I saw a couple hands. Maybe it was just like this. I don't know. Commissioners, comments, questions, or concerns? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed? That item has been approved. Next item on our agenda, Commissioner Miscellaneous. Is there any Commissioner Miscellaneous? Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to let you all know I participated for the first time. I've been getting invited all year, but I hadn't been able to attend a meeting of the ALPACT committee that's regularly meets. I don't remember the acronym, to be honest. But there's a lot of excitement in the community for the Crisis Stabilization Center. And it was good to see members from law enforcement, members from the community talking about how much that center is going to help our communities. And I suggested when I was there that all of these different entities work together to get the word out to community, because even at that meeting, there was some questions as to whether it was going to be mostly used for law enforcement or whether members from the community could just show up or refer some of their family members or friends there. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to work together to have like a community engagement person or whatnot to get that word out to people.
Great.
And then lastly, I mentioned at our full board meeting that I was going to possibly try and move a non-binding resolution at the full board as far as the Drive Safe bill. After having some conversations with some of our colleagues, I think the best route would be to have a letter in support of the bill to probably be released sometime in May of next year. Because again, my intent is to ask our representatives at the state level to act with haste. And so I would definitely welcome any input from our colleagues here and in the other committee on the wording of that letter so that we can get as much support as possible. And so I look forward to connecting with you all after the holidays on that matter and other things as well. I have to rush to get to class for my final, so I'm going to be heading out after this. But again, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Diaz. Any other commissioner miscellaneous? All right, again, seeing none, again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Hope you have a great New Year. Fantastic committee this year. Look forward to a great 2024. Meeting is adjourned.